All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships podcast. And Howard, welcome. I am just so excited to have you here with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
you will be the 142nd person I've interviewed for this podcast, and yet this is a really special interview for me because you and I go back a long, long ways.
Way, way back. Yes.
Yes,
Way back.
and back to the days when I had my cleaning and restoration business, and you at the time, you and Joe Polish were the two guys that I'm sure there was a few other people in the industry that were teaching how to do marketing, that kind of stuff, but you and Joe were the two big guys.
Yeah.
And I had invested in some of your materials, and I remember, being at a local event here in Washington State that you were at, and I got to meet you in person there, and I know we were talking right before we started recording here. There that was a long time ago, and there's been so much water under the bridge for both of us since then. And who would have ever thought back then that we'd be here right
Right.
now, this day,
Right.
20 some years later, having this conversation? That's
True.
powerful.
True. Yeah. In fact, I was just doing in our coaching membership. We do a lot of group coaching, and I coach the people in our leadership level. And I don't do a lot of coaching myself. I have a team that does that. But one of my leadership groups was earlier today, and there's a young lady who is now one of my franchisees. I recently franchised my coaching company, and she was showing off. She was at her office, and she was showing off all these programs from back then.
Okay.
Yeah, 25 years ago. And I'm like, don't show that. I'm like on the cover, like, I was like, that's cheesy. That's terrible. Don't show it. But bring it to the conference. I'll pay you for it. Number one, so I can have it, because I don't have all of my old stuff that to have on my shelf from way, way back in the day. It's like having a something like this on your shelf. This is Zig's book. Did you know that See at the Top used to be called Biscuits, Fleas, and Pump Handles?
I had no idea. No, I did not.
Yeah. And once you got a publisher, they changed the title to See at the Top, and it sold over 1 million copies, like very, very quickly. And anyway, one of my friends, Ellen Rohr, she's one of the my colleagues, and she's also on my coaching team. And she sent me this copy. I'm looking for the 1974 copyright.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it was dedicated to Sugar Baby, the redhead who has been my wife in my life for 27 wonderful years. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's interesting. My mom and dad got into Amway in 1975. And the first time I ever heard about Zig Ziglar was shortly after that, because they always had their books around and stuff. And I started reading at a pretty young age, and I heard about Zig Ziglar when I was just a kid and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You probably heard the story of the pump, the old water pump.
Yes. Yeah. 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 For sure. Well, why don't we? What I want to do is I want to have you. I want to set a little bit of context so people kind of get an idea of who Howard Partridge is and what Howard's all about. So why don't we have you share a little bit about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do, and we'll just kind of start there, Howard.
You bet. Well, so first of all, I'm originally from LA, Lower Alabama. And my wife doesn't laugh at my jokes either, so it's okay. I grew up on welfare. There were 7 kids crammed in a little, from Mobile, Alabama, and there were 7 kids crammed in a little 600 square foot shack. And the roof on that house was so bad that every time it rained, we had to get out all the pots and pans to catch the leaks. My mother fed us on $100 a month from the welfare department. I don't care when that was. It just wasn't a lot of money. And when you grow up in an environment like that, what are you likely to turn out like? Well, I was a wild teenager, and my real dad left when I was a year old and moved to Houston. I had two more dads after that. So my third dad, my stepfather, he and I got in a fight, and I got kicked out of the house. I deserved it, but I had literally zero money. I wasn't even 18 yet. It was the summer before my 18th birthday.
Okay.
And literally had no money. And my buddy, I had quit my job, by the way. I'd quit my job as a bag boy at the grocery store because I couldn't get time off to go see the Rolling Stones at the Superdome in New Orleans. So, kids, there's a good reason to quit your job. No, just
That's
kidding.
right. That's
But
right.
anyway, so I got in some trouble, got put on, got grounded, and I ignored it, and I just went out anyway. So my stepdad and I got in a fight. I got kicked out of the house. I had no money. And my buddy went to the grocery store where we used to work and said, "Hey, Howard needs to get a bus ticket to Houston," and bummed up $39.95 for a Greyhound bus ticket to Houston, Texas. And I literally had 25 cents in my pocket when I got here. Became a waiter, and I worked in all these really high-end restaurants in Houston, wore a tuxedo to work, did all this tableside cooking like Steak Diane, Bananas Foster, Cherries Jubilee. And but I always wanted to have my own business. I just didn't have any money I made enough money really just to pay the rent. And then I met my wife, Denise Cajet Antoinette Panella, from New Jersey. I'm from Lower Alabama. This is going to be a good match. So I go get married into this Italian family. And when you marry an Italian family, you don't get wedding presents, right? You get cash. And we got $3,000 cash in wedding money.
Okay.
And there was a friend of the family, same age as me, 23 at the time, tooling around a little red Mercedes convertible. And I said, I want to know what that guy does, and I want to know if it's legal. Well, he had his own business. He owned his own business. So as soon as I got back to Houston, I spent that entire $3,000 starting my first business out of the trunk of my car, and struggled for about 13 years. I made good money. I made $100,000 profit a year.
Wow.
But I worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's when I started learning about systems. And I found out that, man, I could have a turnkey business. So I started working on that business, transformed it into, as you well know, a multi-million-dollar business that is turnkey. I still own that business today, which
You do? I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. I have 33 team members. I have 2 directors, and I never, ever have to be there. We got a great staff, great systems, and they know that it's their job to run it. So they don't bother me with anything. And I got all my numbers at my fingertips, and it makes a lot of money for me. And I can do pretty much what I want to do. And as you know, back then, I got started because a lot of people wanted to know how I was doing what I was doing. And that's when you and I met, when I was out there. The first training company that I started, which I also still have today, is called Phenomenal Products. And the reason is, as you remember, I had products, right? So you bought probably some maybe cassette tapes or CDs and manuals and things like that. And then I started doing training and coaching. And along the way, I had, as that continued to grow, Mr. Zig Ziglar came and spoke at my conference. And I got to know Tom. One thing led to another. Today, my company is the exclusive small business coaching company for the Zig Ziglar corporations. Tom and I are business partners. I help him run that business. And everything we do is based on the Ziglar philosophy of you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what it is that they want. So we coach in 109 different industries in 20 different countries, everything from, an author, a speaker, a coach, all the way up to businesses that are doing tens of $1 million a year. Our niche is the small business owner who is, doing around, $1 million a year and wants to grow. And what we do is we help that person build systems, become a better leader, and build what I call a phenomenal dream team so that they can have more freedom in their life. And so that's mainly what we do. We do that through coaching and training. Then last year, I franchised my coaching program. It's called Phenomenal Business Coaching, powered by Zig Ziglar. Tom is a business partner in that. And we have a couple of other partners who are in the franchise business. Currently, I have 6 franchisees. And what they do is they simply get people involved in the coaching and the training that we do, and they stay up with that client and coach them once a month and make sure that they're growing and using the material. So I have 2 grandkids that I love, and got a beach house. You got a beach house and grandkids, man. Don't feel sorry for me. And I'm debt free and, prosperous. So, and I know the Lord. So what else could you ask for?
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah, the rest of my life is, what inspires me is, what I teach people is that when you discover your purpose, when you know your why, then your purpose will inspire you because you finally realize why you're here on the earth, right? And so what my purpose is to help small business owners get free. Now, that doesn't mean that we only work with small business owners. It just means that that's my niche, that's my focus, that's what I'm called to do. But what happens, as you well know, is that when a small business starts working, they start getting more predictable, more profitable, and they get turnkey. That affects their family because they're going to have more time with their family. They're going to be a better leader in their family. That affects their kids. We even have a youth program. I wrote a book called, let's see, we're backwards on there, called Phenomenal Youth for kids right there. And so I have a little youth program, and it changes the team members' lives, right? Because the team members that are working with these business owners, they get the Ziglar philosophy. They get to understand how to boost their self-image, build winning relationships, set goals. And a business that is helping their team members reach their goals is a business that's going to have a very high level of engagement, and
That's
people
right.
are going to move up. So now what we're doing is we're finally beginning the process of having more to offer for people who have smaller businesses, like the single, the entrepreneur, the independent agent, like a realtor, insurance agent, or something like that. And that's basically around my book, FTI. The number one reason people don't reach their biggest dreams and goals is what I call FTI, or failure to implement. And there's 10 principles that create the framework of my coaching system that they go through in that book and in that training and in that coaching. Yeah. So that's me today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been quite an evolution, Howard, and I'm really glad that you and I, got to have this conversation and catch up a little bit because, it is, the big thing that stands out for me is, when we do just follow our passions, follow what we feel is in alignment with us, and we just get to continue growing and expanding and just continuing to step in to this role of being the best version of us that we can possibly be.
That's right.
And you mentioned, and I it's not that I set out to do this, but I end up attracting a large number of faith-based entrepreneurs, and people notice it. It's hard to hide, because we just do. It's just and a lot of that is because of our beliefs and our upbringing and all of that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you, you have just continued to grow, continued to expand, and make the right connections that allow you to just keep making your biggest impact in the world. And I'll tell you, having you just describe what that in detail, that's incredibly inspiring. And I know a lot of other people are going to hear that and feel the same way. And now we get to move into and this has been the whole goal of this podcast right from the get-go, is twofold: to give entrepreneurs like yourself the opportunity to share your story, your experience around the most valuable relationships in your life. And for the listeners, I want them, when they hear the interviews that we do here, I want them to be inspired to place just more intentional focus on creating more real, meaningful, rewarding, and profitable relationships in their life. Because I feel, I mean, I've long believed that relationships, as entrepreneurs, relationships are the most valuable asset we have. Everything else stems from that. And so I'm really excited to switch gears. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. Howard,
Yep.
have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that have completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Howard, I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this.
Well, there's no doubt. And of course, the one person that comes to mind is Mr. Zig Ziglar himself. However, what I have to recognize is that I would not have been involved with Ziglar. And even when Zig was alive, I didn't see him that much. When I would go to the office, he was there. From time to time, we would have him at an event, and we shared some time behind the scenes. As a matter of fact, so I have to say that really Tom is the one who, just opened that door for me and continued to open that door and continue to invite me in to do more and more with the Ziglar Corporation. And one of the reasons for that is that, I came along at a time when Tom and the company really needed what I had.
Okay.
And there's a lot of people that have come along in the Ziglar history. They were there for their purposes. They were there to take rather than give. And so, in fact, even since I've been there have been people that have come along that wanted to literally, I mean, one guy who really even just tried to steal the company, right? Try to pressure Tom into selling the company. And it's just a bad story. And I was the one who was left standing basically and there to sort of nurture Tom. And and Zig couldn't go out and speak anymore because he had right before I came to know them, I didn't know this when I first met him, but he had a fall, and he fell down the stairs, and he was suffering from short-term memory. It revealed some dementia that was there that they didn't know that was there. And so he was still going out and speaking on the big stage with Peter Lowe and Tamara Lowe, and that back then it was called Get Motivated. The big stage with ex-presidents and celebrities and all that. But they were doing an interview style because he had a short-term memory issue, right? And even when he spoke at my conference, Julie, his daughter, came, and Tom was sitting in the audience, and Julie interviewed him on the stage, and he would start telling the same story over and over and over again, right?
Okay.
He remembered all the stories that he had told since 1974 when his first book was published. which I don't know if we were recording when we talked about this book. I guess we were, maybe.
You know what? Say it again because I want to
Okay.
make sure.
Yeah. So just in case we weren't recording when, because Kevin and I were just talking a little bit, before Zig's book was called See at the Top, it was called Biscuits, Fleas, and Pump Handles. And the publisher was smart and said, hey, if we're going to publish this phenomenal work here, we got to put a new name on it. So they call it See at the Top. And of course, you gotta love the subtitle. It was something like, I have to grab one, but it was something like get a checkup from the neck up. Zig said everybody needs a checkup from the neck up, and the hardening of the attitudes is a very deadly disease. Oh, it's something like your solution for stinking thinking, because stinking thinking leads to hardening of the attitudes, and so we all need a checkup from the neck up. Anyway, so the night before Zig spoke at my conference in that interview style, and he would repeat himself, but he had enough snap that when Julie gently reminded him, Dad, you've already told him that story, he had enough snap still and enough wit to say, well, yeah, but those two guys sitting on the front row right there, they weren't listening.
That's funny. That's
He
funny.
made sort of a joke out of it. Well, the night before, we had a little private thing. There were about 14 of my friends there, and we had Zig was there and at the table, and and we had a lot to be grateful for and what have you back then, and we were high-fiving each other on some project that we had just done well on or something. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was how much sales we made that day or whatever. And Zig, even though he had this short-term memory issue and he would repeat stories and stuff, he's looking around, he's like, let me tell you something. Nobody at this table, including me, got to where they are by themselves.
That's right. That's right.
In fact, he had a little saying. He said, if you ever see a turtle on top of a fence post, you can be guaranteed he didn't get there by himself. He had such a way with words. Anyway, so I met Tom and then stayed in touch with him. I'd go to Dallas, we'd go to lunch, and they asked me to do some video, some webcast. Basically, back then they had a studio and they had a platform where they called it Success 2.0, I think. And so I went up there and started doing some video on small business, and Tom then wrote Born to Win, which ended up being Zig's last book. And he called me up one day and he said, we're writing what I think is going to be Dad's last book called Born to Win. He said, I want to put the last chapter I want to be Born to Win for business leaders. And he said, I know you use this quote all the time. And so he asked me for the quote, which is, the one and only reason your business exists is to be a vehicle to help you achieve your life goals. And then we have this framework in the book. The vehicle is actually a bicycle, and it has the wheel of life and the wheel of business that we created. And Tom put this phenomenal presentation together where basically you build out this bike with your vision and your purpose and all this stuff. Well, a little time went by and Zig couldn't speak from the stage anymore. It just was too much for him to travel and all of that. And Tom called me and he said, listen, the whole team went to Chicago and we met with a coach who helps people discover their unique. He didn't say unique abilities. I don't think it was Dan Sullivan. Maybe it was. I don't know. I don't think so. But this coach helps companies discover their core competency, and they get all their assets out on the table, and they determined that after a 14-hour grueling day, they determined that we should be in business coaching, small business coaching, and we created I don't remember how many points, 11 points of, criteria that anybody we partnered with, because we didn't want to do it ourselves, had to meet these qualifications. So 1, they had to have a successful business. 2, they had to be already in the coaching business. 3, of course, probably number 1, they got to have a phenomenal reputation, and so on and so forth. They got done with a list, and there were only 2 people left on the list, me and one other guy. And he talked to the other guy and didn't even bring it up. He just realized in the conversation that that was not the right guy. And so we started working on it together. And the reason that it changed my life is not only did I begin to really live by the Ziglar philosophy, use the planner, just, I've studied thousands of hours of Zig Ziglar. I've taught thousands of hours of Zig Ziglar. I mean, I learned it. I applied it. Not only did that change my life, the philosophy, but what happened was, from the beginning, January 2011, our very first conference we did together was in Nashville, and we invited people from the Ziglar list. So I went from a coach in one niche to having people in every kind of industry you can imagine. 109 industries at the last count. So my top clients are credit card processing, pet grooming, architect, Amish furniture retailer. I mean, they're in every kind of industry you can imagine. But what I learned is that these systems that I teach, whether it's leadership, marketing, sales, service, or financial, every business needs those. And every business needs leadership. Every leader needs to know how to build a team. And so it really validated my work. And so you could say that Tom Ziglar opened up a world of opportunities to me that would have never existed otherwise, because Ziglar is the most trusted name in training, and it just opens doors. And so and Tom and I even traveled around the world. We went to Australia, we went to UK, we went to I know I've been to Canada, he's been to Canada. I don't know if we went to Canada together, but all over the US with basically my seminar with the bike talk at the top, at the intro, and then I did the rest of it. And over half of our coaching members, and we've been together for about 12 years, for at least the first 5 or 6 or 7 years, over half of them came through the Ziglar doors.
Wow.
And so the people that I know today, Dave Ramsey, Brian Tracy, you name it, most of the people that I know, that door was opened by Tom Ziglar, And so I'd have to say Tom, but I also want to say this. I want to say 2 more things, and then we can have more discussion. But one is that had I not have had other mentors in my life previous to that, I wouldn't have been able to even I wouldn't have been able to what's the best way to put it? I wouldn't have been able to enjoy the benefits of this relationship with Ziglar had I not been prepared ahead of time. So when I was
foundation, you had a solid foundation,
right?
And the other big piece of it is that there's 2 things. Tom had trust in both your character and in your competence. That's why you were the guy. That's
right. Exactly.
You were the only. Well, I mean, there was 2, but then he realized, for whatever reason, I have no idea why, that the other guy wasn't the guy. You were the guy.
Yeah. The
And
other guy's a great guy. He's somebody that we both know and love. But yeah, so early on in my life, I came to know the Lord, and I was one of those kind of Christians who preached at anything that moved. I was that obnoxious guy who showed up at a business lunch with a big fat Bible, and like, we're going to talk about Jesus, whether you want to or not. It was obnoxious. And fortunately, God sent me a very wise mentor. He's 83 this year, coming up this year, and wisest man that I know. And he began to mentor me, and he said, Howard, you got the greatest message in the world. I mean, there's no greater story ever told, right, than the gospel of Jesus Christ. But your delivery needs some work. You got the right message, but your delivery needs some work, right? So it almost cost me my marriage. And so it saved my marriage, and then I began to there's an old saying that, preach the gospel and when necessary, use words. Fast forward to today, I have actually 3 Christian books. I've got Phenomenal Youth is Christian based. Phenomenal Love, I wrote with a friend of mine. Her name is Brenda Sell, godliest woman that I know. And then my publisher asked me to write this book last year called The Monday Morning Christian: How Living Out Your Faith in Business Leads to Phenomenal Success. And so there's not only great business content in there, but there's a 4-part framework for believers to move through, and to understand their identity in Christ, how to lead with love, how to allow God to lead through them, how to leave a legacy, have an impact, and all that. And it's one of my favorite books that I've ever written. It wasn't even my idea. It was my publisher's idea. Mm-hmm. So anyway, then after that, so here's a crazy thing that happened is here my spiritual mentor, who is one of my pastors, who helped me figure out how to not be an obnoxious Christian that nobody wants to be a part of that, right? And he also studied business. And as he came to my company every week to pray with me, just think about that for a second. He didn't get paid. There was not that's just who he was. And his job as a pastor, I guess, his passion as a pastor. And he's looking at the chaos going around. I only had 7 employees, but he's like, I was literally a slave to that business. And he goes, Howard, you need the E-Myth. I said, what's an E-Myth? Well, of course, we all know the E-Myth is the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. So I got that book and I went to Destin, Florida, my favorite place in the whole world. I got a beautiful beach house on my favorite beach down there now. And I went down there. This is way before I could even dream about having a place down there, but sat on that beach, rewrote my vision. I'm gonna have a turnkey business. I came back to Houston and started building that business up. Got it to last year we did 4 million in that business, and they run it. They don't really grow it. They just make it a little more profitable every year, which is fine with me because I don't have to be there. And my purpose and passion is not to grow a service company to, $100 million. I could do it. We probably franchise that business one of these days, but my passion is helping other people build their business. And so, because of my mentor, not only did I get my spiritual life figured out, but I got systems, right? But then what do you run into when you grow? I figured out I already had the marketing. I just didn't have the systems. And so grew that business to several $1 million a year. And now I got 2 partners. I got team members. We had to figure out leadership. And so I started following John Maxwell. I became his very first coach on his John Maxwell team that he does nowadays. And spent a lot of time with John, got personal mentoring from him, and really began to understand leadership. So that was helpful. And along the way, even though we were doing a couple $1 million a year, we weren't making money. And after big salaries, there was no profit left over. So I got a consultant by the name of Ellen Rohr. And Ellen helped me set up a system in that business where we're priced right, the expenses are right. It's a system that if you follow it. So because of her, I got debt free, and all my businesses are super profitable, and it's just like truly a phenomenal life. But I say all that to say that it was those points, those mentors, those coaches, those consultants, the training that I went to. Sorry, my do not disturb didn't work for some reason when I set that a few minutes ago. Is what helped me to move to the next level.
Yeah.
See? And so a partnership like Tom or Ellen Rohr or many of the other partnerships that I have. So the final thing I want to say is, like you, I believe that I don't believe it. I know it. It's just a truth, is that all business and all of life is about relationships, right? And the greatest life lesson that I've ever learned is this: get around people, and this is what your program is all about. Get around people who are already where you want to be.
Yep.
And that have a plan for you to follow. Because see, there's a lot of people who are really successful, but they're not sure exactly how it happened. I was with Clint Black, a country music.
I saw that.
Yeah. And anyway, so and I became friends with his brother. Well, his brother never made it big, and all four of his brothers were musicians. Clint happened to build a relationship at a specific time with a specific person, Bill Ham, who was ZZ Top's manager, ended up managing him. And I mean, that guy went straight to the top. So you gotta not only get around people who are where you want to be, but people who have a plan for you to follow. See, a coach will give you a framework to help you move to the next level, or a consultant or a mentor or whatever. And I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the relationship with Tom and Zig, Tom's family. Tom's daughter, Alexandra, Zig Ziglar's granddaughter, has worked for me for 5.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'm like part of the family. But Ellen not only is very successful financially, but she had a system for me to follow. Right. And so that's what we do, is we put people, we figure out the best way for business systems to work. Got a membership program where small business owners can come in, learn the training, get in front of great speakers and trainers, and get the coaching that they need, download our systems and get the coaching that they need to move their small business to the next level.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much, Howard, for taking the time to just share from your heart today, because, I already, mentioned what, the goal has always been for this podcast, and thanks to you, we delivered on that in spades today. And so I want to thank you so much for your role in just what you shared and making that happen. For anybody listening to this going, wow, Kevin, I really like this Howard guy. I love who he is and the way he shows up and his energy and all that. And I'm sure there's probably, after everything that you've shared, Howard, there's some people thinking, I want to find out more what he's doing. How can they do that?
Just go to howardpartridge.com,
Okay.
opt in. You're going to get one of my books for free, The 5 Secrets of a Phenomenal Business. If you're not a business owner, we've got tons of personal development stuff available to you. As I mentioned, my book, FTI. So get on the list, and then based on who you are, we'll communicate with you and offer you opportunities to, connect with us. So
Yeah. Awesome.
that's all you need to do. And if you Google my name, you're going to find out probably more than you really want to know, but that's another thing.
Well, Howard, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I think I would say that that I would just remind everybody of Mr. Ziegler's favorite quote, his most famous quote, and his favorite quote till the day he passed away, November 28th, 2012. And I like to not only say it, you can have everything in life you want if you'll just help enough other people get what it is that they want. But I like to say it like this: you can have everything in life you want, because here's what we know. Mr. Ziegler said that every human being wants the same 9 things out of life. They want to be happy, they want to be healthy, they want to be at least reasonably prosperous, they want to have friends, they want to have good family relationships, they want to have peace, they want to have they want to feel secure, they want to have hope for the future, and they want to love and be loved. And so if you'll we all have goals, we all want to excel, we all want to, we all have dreams and all that. But the key to it is to help other people reach their goals and dreams, and you'll have all those things. So just want to reemphasize that truth. In fact, being a believer, I've already shared with you, I'm a believer. And I used to tell Mr. Ziegler when he was with us here on earth, so, I tell people that you stole that quote from Jesus, because Jesus said, give and it'll be given back to you, pressed down and shake it together and running over. And he goes, oh, well, I know him personally, so that'll be all right.
That's
So I
perfect.
guess if there's one thing I could say is come to know the Lord, because he created you. He has a design for your life. Get the Monday Morning Christian if you're in business, well, whether you're in business or not, everybody's in business. But so God created you, which I believe he did. He has a plan and a purpose for your life. He has a design. You're here for a specific reason. And like you said earlier, if you don't get on that path, you might be successful in business and monetarily and all that, but you're going to miss what God really has for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The joy and the fulfillment.
Yeah. Well, Howard, thanks so much again for taking the time to have this conversation. Really appreciate it. I am so excited to share this interview because I know what kind of impact this is going to have. So thank you again.
Awesome. Well, thank you for making it possible.
My pleasure.